my father was imprisoned, wrongfully imprisoned, and he was accused of being a spy
Wow.
because of our religion. We're the Baha'i faith.
You have a very impressive social media presence. You said that it is separate from your job. You have it for a different reason. Your username is I'll let you say it. So
Lawyer in heels.
lawyer in heels, which is that so is it a fashion angle or so welcome everyone to another episode of Lawyer Interviews. I am your host, Jeff Dillon. With us, we have Elham. She is a criminal defense attorney, specializes in litigation, practicing in Canada. Elham, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we love having a wide variety of experts to learn about their stories and their legal background. So why don't you tell us real quick what your current practice is?
So I am a criminal trial lawyer from Toronto, Canada, and I specialize in litigation, which means we handle cases anywhere from criminal organization, importing drugs, firearms, robberies, sexual assaults, to homicides. So anything that is extremely, extremely serious are the kind of cases that my office handles.
Great. And by we, are you working for a law firm? Are you a sole practitioner?
So I'm a sole practitioner, but I work in a chambers. It's called the University Law Chambers, where there's about 45 other criminal lawyers. So we all work together.
Understood. And are you the boss?
I am one of the bosses, you can say. Yeah, so criminal law is very different than, for instance, corporate litigation or civil law or family law, simply because of the kind of clientele that we have. The kind of clientele that we represent are people that really have hit rock bottom. And what's at stake is not money or their kids, it's their freedom. And so once they work with a lawyer, they only trust that one lawyer. So, we have the fortune to deal with, once a client comes to the door, I mean, they stay with that particular lawyer until the very end. And quite frequently, a lot of our clients are clients that have been in and out of the system. According to the police, they have a lifestyle of criminality. So we see them and their family and their friends. So they like to kind of cherry pick who is going to be their advocate in the criminal justice system, which absolutely makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why criminal law isn't an area of law where you can have like family law, for instance. They have 50 lawyers and different lawyers kind of like take over the files and they can do pre-trial motions and all that stuff. It's very, very different because we know a lot of very private, secret things that don't like to be shared or that they don't want other people to. That makes sense.
And how do you find your clientele?
And
or how do they find you?
How do they find me? Majority of them are through referrals. So majority of my clients come to me by way of a referral. So for instance, I'll represent Jack, and Jack will have a friend who's also charged with similar types of offenses. And then it just kind of goes on and on and on. So criminal law really is referral based. It's not so much of what you see on social media or advertising. I don't even advertise, quite frankly. I do social media for other reasons, but it's more a referral based kind of my practice anyways.
Got it. And what kind of criminal cases do you enjoy practicing the most?
I would say the criminal organization stuff is probably my favorite. It involves drugs and firearms, wiretaps. The cases that kind of make your mind think and kind of understand where the police are coming from and kind of break the code of, confidential sources, and just there's a lot of nuances for the bigger kind of cases, which I do enjoy. It kind of makes your brain, think outside the box, if I can say that.
Why is that? What makes these cases more difficult or require more creativity?
Well, it requires more creativity because a lot of wiretap cases, for instance, when I say wiretaps, it really is very similar to kind of what you see in the movies, right? The police will have a confidential informant that will go to them and say, hey, I think, Jack Black is dealing, with 50 keys of cocaine. And because the person is a confidential source, that person cannot be identified as to the information that they have said. Mm-hmm. So what the police will do is will start an investigation, and they will start doing investigation based on circumstantial evidence. So, for instance, Jack will say that, Mr. So-and-so drives a red Porsche. The police will go and find a red Porsche, and they'll start to follow this red Porsche. And then they will try to fit into their theory that, for instance, the red Porsche goes into Tim Hortons and is only there for 3 minutes and then comes out with something in his hand. And they say, well, that's consistent with some kind of drug deal going down. And so what the police do is they try to, once they get information, follow the target and then try to put a picture together to fit their theory. But sometimes it's not, as the saying, goes, it's not as what it may appear. Mm-hmm. So having, someone running into a Tim Hortons for 5 minutes, it could really be for a coffee. Maybe it's for a drug deal. So there's just different nuances that as a lawyer, you have to kind of think outside the box, have to kind of make, explanations. I know that I had a case a few years back where the police had done a search warrant and they had believed that my guy was this big time, part of this biker gang and was involved in underground gambling. And there was a sheet with people's names and it had numbers on it. And the police had believed that that was a debt list because it had names, it had numbers, right? And so when my client saw that, my client says, that's me and my kids playing. There's a jar of jelly beans. And we were trying to guess as to how many jelly beans are in the jar. That has nothing to do with a gambling debt or anything of that sort. So it's things like that, right? So
through what might be otherwise in our minds, we might have a bias towards believing something is a certain way, and it's your job to disprove these theories that the police are putting by.
Right.
I would also say it's nice to hear a little Canadian flair of bringing up a Tim Hortons because we don't get those where we live. So I don't know how many criminal actions happen in Tim Hortons, but I do love Tim Hortons and their donuts.
Okay, good. Yes, Tim Hortons is the best, I think.
Yeah. If you haven't tried it, you're missing out, people watching. So backing up a little bit, what you go to law school and you choose your career path. What drew you to criminal law as opposed to other types of practices?
So I wanted to be a criminal lawyer from maybe when I was young. I was maybe 8 years old. Mm-hmm. And so there's a story behind that. So originally I was born in Iran.
Okay.
So my parents, I have 2 older brothers, and my parents, when the dictatorship came to be, meaning when the monarchy was overthrown and it became a dictatorship, and there's still all kinds of crazy stuff happening in Iran as we speak.
What year was that exactly?
That would have been, we fled Iran in 1983.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. And so what had happened was when the monarchy was overthrown, and I was in diapers. I was very little. Okay. So when the monarchy was overthrown, my father was imprisoned, wrongfully imprisoned, and he was accused of being a spy.
Wow. Because
of our religion. We're the Baha'i faith.
Okay.
And so anyone that was of the Baha'i faith was being persecuted, and they were trying to kind of clean out the religion. Wow. And so my father was thrown into jail, wrongfully imprisoned. And so one day when he actually got out of prison, my mother, my father, and my 2 older brothers and I fled My parents had paid, there are these people that are called Baluch, which are people that kind of live in the mountains. They had paid them through gold coins, who had then led us through the mountains into Pakistan. And we lived in Pakistan for a year. And I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be an advocate for the wrongfully accused and give a voice to the innocent. Because in my eyes, it was my father that was wrongfully, in prison, and he hadn't done anything wrong. And so then when we came to Canada, we came as refugees. My parents, who were extremely affluent in the Middle East, had literally lost everything. And I think the story is it's very common. I think if you speak to a lot of Iranians, I think they will share the same story, in that they came from a very affluent background, a lot of wealth, and then when they had to flee their homeland, they kind of had to start from scratch. So we fled to Pakistan for a year, lived there, and then came to Canada with my parents and my two older brothers.
And so your parents, both your parents, were able to come. So long story short, though, your father was wrongfully imprisoned and then managed to escape.
We didn't escape. So he was released.
Okay.
They had released him, and then the night that he was released, the same night, literally, like dishes in the sink, we had fled. Had fled the country and came to Pakistan and came to Canada as refugees. Mm-hmm. And my parents didn't speak English. They didn't know. It was a culture shock. They both worked 2-3 jobs with 3, very young children. I was in ESL classes. I stuttered. But we kind of, the one thing that my parents, what comes to mind, and it's still in my ears, my mother always saying to me, go to bed every night with a grateful heart, right? Like, always have gratitude, no matter what comes your way, just go to bed every night being thankful, because you still have lots to be grateful for. And my father always saying, every morning when you wake up, you have to wake up with intention. So whatever your day is going to be, you better focus on what your intention is of that day. And, you got to go and get what you need to get. So I think with that, and that was kind of ingrained in my brothers and I growing up. Fast forward, and I said, look, I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer, and I literally could not wait to be a lawyer. I mean, I went from high school to university, volunteered at a criminal law firm, mm-hmm. went to law school, and then here we are.
And when you are at law school and transitioning to your first legal job, did everything line up with what you expected as someone who wanted to be a lawyer for forever?
And better. And better. And I don't know, when I became a lawyer, there were very few. I don't think I even knew one female lawyer. Okay. Like, it was just so rare. But I had the fortune to work with 3 amazing, it was a law firm called Hinkson, Sachek, McLeod. Hinkson is still a lawyer, but he's moved his practice up in the suburbs. I still work with Nadir Sachek, we're law partners, and Donald McLeod became a judge. Mm. And so they kind of took me under their wing, and they really, really, really taught me so much. And I absolutely loved criminal law. I couldn't believe that I was getting paid to be a criminal lawyer. I would do it if I didn't have to pay for a lifestyle, I would do it for free.
It's such an important part to have great role models and great lawyers teaching you early on, because it's an apprenticeship at the end of the day. Yes. How did you find these teachers in this first job? Because that's a very difficult part. That's something people go into law school, and you want to make sure you can accomplish something like that.
Yes. So, and it's funny because after high school, I knew that I wanted to go to law school. So before I even got into law school, I had gone. I was volunteering at my old high school, and I had this guidance counselor. And I said, I want to be a lawyer and I want to get into law school. He says, oh, one of my best friends happens to be a lawyer. I'll introduce you. Who was Nadir Sachek. So I went and I met Nadir, and he says, look, you're not even in law school, you have no experience, we're not even hiring. I understand you're not hiring, I understand I don't have any experience, but you don't understand that I want to be a lawyer, so I really need this job. Like, you need to allow me to kind of, so it took a little bit of convincing, but they finally gave in and they gave me the job before I even got into law school.
Wow.
And then the rest is kind of, and then I would start doing big homicides and big cases with them. And they never babied me. They were of the opinion of, we'll grab you, throw you into the deep end, either you sink or you swim. Figure it out.
A pre-law school job lined up is,
yes.
I've never heard of that. It's brilliant.
I was lucky.
Well,
but I wasn't giving up either because I had a vision.
You had a plan, but you made that meeting. I could have talked myself out of that. Oh, I'm not ready. I'll meet him later when I'm going to law school and I know how to say something. But you obviously were able to prove yourself and prove interested enough. Because if someone came up to me, I'd say, well, yeah, let's see if you make it through all the hoops and things to get to become a lawyer. So very impressive. And I think it's a good lesson. Take the meeting, meet the people, and have a plan.
Have a plan. Wake up with intention.
Wake up with intention. So switching, we were discussing earlier, completely switching gears, just because I don't want to run out of time and make sure we cover everything.
Sure.
You have a very impressive social media presence. You said that it is separate from your job. You have it for a different reason. Your username is I'll let you say it. So
Lawyer in Heels.
Lawyer in Heels, which is that, so is it a fashion angle, or let's hear, what is your brand?
Okay, so I wouldn't say it's a brand per se. I would say it's who I am. So, when people hear that I'm a lawyer, their first reaction is, really, are you a lawyer? And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm really a lawyer. It surprises a lot of people that when they first meet me. What also surprises people is that the way that I dress. Because when people think of a lawyer, they think that they should be wearing blacks and navies and grays. I think if you Google what a lawyer looks like all these things will pop up, right? The high heels need to be black and 3 inches, and whatever the mold that was once created 100 years ago is what that mold is. And so for me, I think it's important that people live an authentic life, dress whatever feels comfortable for you, which means if you feel comfortable in wearing all black, wear all black. If you feel comfortable wearing baggy clothes, you still have to look respectable, but if you feel comfortable wearing baggy clothes, wear baggy clothes. The point is, never let anyone or society's stereotypes to dictate to you what mold you should fit into. Do whatever makes you happy. Do it well, which means that, look, you're going to have a harder time when you walk into a room. People are going to be judging you automatically. So you got to put in the work of knowing the case better than everyone else, knowing the law better than everyone else, walking in there and giving it 150%.
Absolutely. So would you say your content pushes that message?
I think my content pushes the message of, you can be a lawyer, you can like fashion, you can be on social media, you can do all kinds of things. And just because there are stereotypes of what society expects of you to behave or look like or act, it doesn't make it true. So I'm trying to hopefully trailblaze and just kind of break the stereotypes of people's expectations.
Yeah, you don't hear of lawyers with personalities, with interests, and being able to, for people too.
If you look on the comments is like, a lawyer on Instagram, like, shouldn't you be lawyering? And I'm thinking, well, outside of court, like, we also have lives, right? Like, we do other things besides sleeping in suits and reading case law. We are also human beings.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of people don't get that.
Yeah. Defective human beings, but still human beings.
You know what? That's fair. Look, law is it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
So, Elham, before we leave, one thing that was really interesting is your name. You have different pronunciations, you were telling me, and also different people that you would use different nicknames with. Why don't you tell us a little more about that?
So my birth name is Elham, which is the Farsi way to pronounce it. Elham is the Arabic way to pronounce it, and my father was born in Jordan. And when I came to Canada, people could not pronounce Elham or Elham because they just didn't understand or knew how to pronounce it. So I was given a Canadianized name of Ellen. My close family and friends call me Ellie because that's just short form for Elham. Or sometimes I go by the nickname of El. So I've been called a lot worse. So you have a variety of options of whatever you want to call me. Elham, Ellen, Elham, Ellie, El.
And when you're so professionally, do you ever have a preference or a pressure to use a certain of your names?
No. So my all my degrees have Elham, Ellen, Jamshidi. My business cards have Elham, Ellen, Jamshidi. And it's funny because my social media handler is Elham, Ellie, Jamshidi. So it just, most of my clients just call me Miss J. Like that's just easier. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, no, I was wondering, but not everyone has that calculation to make when you have different names, different people, different considerations.
Yes. And I think, I just think it just over time, right? Like, I came in a time where it was like, they didn't know what the Middle East was. They were not familiar with immigrants and people that didn't speak a different language. It was something that was very different. So you kind of had to assimilate into society as it was then. I mean, today that would never happen, but so I'm owning where I come from, which I'm very proud of. So
very good. Well, we have a few minutes left. We can bring up. I would like to get back to our awesome topic of we're talking about true crime, and you say you don't watch TV, but you are a fan of some of these true crime documentaries. Which one would you say was your favorite?
I am. So I wouldn't say it's a true crime.
Okay.
It's a show called Queen of the South. It's on Netflix. So it's not true crime in the sense of, I think it's based on a novel or a book. However, as a criminal lawyer that has done all kinds of criminal cases, I would say that is pretty close to reality of what happens. Queen of the South, Ozark.
Oh, well, I love Ozark.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
a lot of
Like,
people...
so those kind, it's pretty, it's
And you think they did a good job? Because a lot of times people will complain about shows if you watch them about, oh, that was nowhere near what would actually happen in a courtroom. So Queen of the South, you recommend is a
Queen
real...
of the South and Ozark. I would say they're pretty accurate. I'm not saying everything, but I think overall, I think it's pretty accurate.
I see. Yeah. And I guess anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself that could be of interest?
Oh gosh, I mean, I don't know. You have to ask me. I'm honored to be here and to be a part of this. One thing I remember wanting to become do a commentary about, legal questions, right? Like a Nancy Grace, right? Like you kind of go and you talk about law things that are happening. And I'd say, one day I'm going to be on CNN and doing the commentary of legal stuff. So this is as close as it's going to get. So I am so honored to be here. So I do appreciate you guys reaching out.
Yeah, we loved having you. Please, everyone, we recommend you follow at Lawyer in Heels. And thank you again.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you.